Eagles lose the Super Bowl last night, and Flossie, thank you for being here first. I think that look, there's many valid reasons that the Eagles lost the Super Bowl. I think there are three that I heard most often when I listened in on Philadelphia radio today and checked out the internet, and they are all three very notable factors. I think the third one's the actual most crucial one, and the one that's going to have Eagles fans shouting and screaming, including Angelo Cataldi, who's a legendary radio host in Philadelphia, really went all in on number three. The first and most common thing that I saw when I looked around ESPN and everything today was the James Bradbury defensive holding call at the end of the game, where Juju Smith-Schuster in real time, like, barely got held up, I didn't think. But in slow motion, it looked like a definitely legitimate defensive holding call. I think that we're gonna hear James Bradbury himself weigh in on it. I want you to analyze his body language at the beginning and tell me if James Bradbury looks like the guy that A, doesn't want to get fined, or B, maybe just had a talk from a coach about not making excuses or something. This is James Bradbury talking about the defensive holding call that he had in the final minutes of the Super Bowl last night.
I mean, I pulled the jersey, they called holding. I was hoping they would let it ride, but it wasn't holding.
Is that something they typically let ride?
I'm not sure. I think based off the playoff games that we were in, playoff games that I saw, sometimes the refs let some things like that go, just depend on the ref.
Yeah, and that's the big question, the playoff games that he watched. And I think that's another big one is, okay, he's watching those 49ers games. And obviously the 49ers game took a wrong turn when both the 49ers quarterbacks got injured. But I do think that there were also some defensive holding and interference calls in that game that weren't necessarily typical of what the 49ers had gotten away with earlier in the season. And this is going to be the theme all offseason is, okay, can we get back to some consistency in the way that they call defensive holding and the way they call interference? That foul at the end of the game right there, in my opinion, was ticky-tack given the way the rest of the game had been called. We didn't see a lot of penalties in that game. It's not like there hadn't been moments like that with plays by Bradbury just like that in the game, yet they chose the very end there. And I think that, honestly, Pat Mahomes had a good stretch of gamesmanship there. You see, for one, he saw what he thought could be construed as holding. He threw the ball really far away and out of touch from where Juju Smith-Schuster actually could have caught it. Juju Smith-Schuster himself, if you watch, he didn't turn around looking for a flag. I don't think he thought he was going to get a flag. So Mahomes kind of forced the issue, and the flag actually came in pretty late on the play too. I think that's the wrong time to inject yourself into the game as an official. Yes, you can say that by the letter of the law that was a flag, but it shouldn't have been in that moment. Now look, Kansas City likely would have kicked field goal, maybe, because the field conditions were just sloppy. We're going to get to that as the second thing people are talking about. But if they had kicked the field goal in those sloppy conditions where we knew that a chip shot wasn't just a chip shot, there's a really good chance there that Philadelphia's offense still had been rolling in the second half and that the Eagles win that game. I think they got a valid gripe there, and it's more one that's relevant to the entire league really this offseason. This feels almost like it's going to be a muted version of when Sean Payton wanted to just destroy everybody when he just got completely screwed. Like, there are no bones about it. He just got screwed in that one. I want you to watch it in real time one more time, because the slow motion, it looks like, oh yeah, for sure. But watch it in real time. And first. This is from a veteran offensive coach. You know how many times that route gets run and it's not called? It's a play that teams perennially send into the league and never get the call. So the offensive coaches are usually sending that into the league and saying, like, why the hell aren't we getting this call? Guys grab like that all the time. If it stopped the receiver from getting to the ball, I understand, but that was not the cause. Some people had asked why they didn't get any help from the booth. The clarification is that defensive holding is a judgment call, so the rules prevent the NFL's officiating command center from using the replay assist. When they kind of get in the referee's ear and say, hey, pick up that flag. They do it a lot, and it's been one of the improvements that they actually have made this year. Is a lot of times a flag will get picked up and you don't get a whole lot of explanation about it. So no matter that Fox's 44 cameras dedicated for game coverage quickly provided replays calling into question whether such a call was warranted. I know there were a couple people who saw the play in person that said either at field level or where they were sitting in the stands, it actually looked like it was a lot more impactful than it was. I still think that due to Juju Smith-Schuster not even looking for the flag, the ball being thrown really in an uncatchable area, which doesn't matter for defensive holding because it's not about the catchability at that point. It's before the ball is in the air. But it looked like Mahomes really forced the issue on that, which credit to him. I mean, that's one of those little tricks of the game. But if you watch this in real time, so up at the top of the screen there, watch and see if you think he's really impeded or affected. I don't know, man. The ball goes out. No complaint by Juju Smith-Schuster. I almost said the S word. You guys all know I'm trying to keep this clean. Juan True Texan says that the human effect was in full effect on that particular call. Yeah, I'm not one for the scripted conspiracies or anything, but obviously there's fallibility there. There's big moments in big games. I think sometimes officials fall prey to the human fallibility of it. The second thing, we're talking about things that I've heard people in Philadelphia blaming for this loss. And I'm not saying that in a negative way. I think there's legitimate gripes, and then there's one very, very legitimate gripe that we're going to hear an entertaining radio call about. But let's see. Field conditions. Oh, and somebody points out that Juju Smith-Schuster said that he thought it was a flag. Yeah, okay. Afterwards, when asked about it after he won the Super Bowl, yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster sure did feel like it was a call. I don't know. We for people that just joined, Bradbury said that it was too, but man, it looked like a hostage video. It looked like Bradbury was trying to say what he knew was right because we don't want to make excuses. We're going to see these guys. Coach just gave us a nice speech, and we'll leave it at that. We'll go on to next year. Field conditions. Okay, this has been a pet peeve of mine for a while, and I don't know why the NFL does this, but it was bad yet again, except that this time it's in an indoor stadium, but because they bring that turf in. Remember at NRG how awesome that was when they used to bring the turf in? In Arizona, they do a better job because we'll show a video of it. They roll it in and out. But this was a special field that had been grown for a couple years. Just watch this video and watch how absurd this was. First with a kicking where you got guys. Now watch. Okay. I mean, he slips. We're going to see this will be. He slips coming around the corner. Slips there on the end. We got the right defensive tackle coming up. Slips at the beginning. Looks like left defensive end here. That was a left defensive tackle. Right defensive tackle falls on his face. Running back. Slips. I mean, it was a sloppy football game. Now, I'm not making excuses for anybody. That affects both teams. You could argue, as I will in a moment, that it affects the team that has the better pass rush worse. But this is just how ridiculous and absurd it is. I get so sick of seeing these videos every year gushing about how awesome the NFL is at getting this field ready.
I'm not going to lie.
This is Hassan Reddick first in his description of the field.
Never played on.
Without making excuses, to get to this level in this game and have it be the worst field you ever played on, I mean, it's got to be frustrating beyond.
It was very disappointing. You know, it's the NFL. You would think it would be better, so you know we can get some better play. But it is what it is, man. You know, it is what it is. I don't know. Maybe the league will look at it and tell Arizona they got to step their stuff up. I don't know what it's. I don't know. It's not my decision to make. It's not my call to make. Whatever it is what it is.
Yeah, it's not Arizona. It's the NFL itself, because this is what they do. All right. The NFL has spent 2 years prepping the grass for tonight's field at the Super Bowl. The grass was grown at a local farm in Phoenix. It was installed 2 weeks ago, and the field has been rolled out each morning for daily sunshine. small on my screen here. Total cost $800,000. So this is the NFL. The NFL takes charge of this, and they make sure that they have these pristine conditions, and it ends up looking beautiful. But the play is just sloppy as all get out, and I'm sick of it. The NFL's got to figure this out. Don't let the Cardinals take all the heat for all this. The argument I would make if I were an Eagles fan would be this. We saw this a couple weeks ago in Cincinnati when the Bills, who have a very good four-man pass rush to the point where they don't need to blitz a lot, just like the Eagles, when they had to play on those snowy conditions, it was a really bad affair. Like, it was bad for the Bills. They ended up looking like a completely different defense. If you look at these pass rush win rates, so this is how often the defense is winning their pass rushes compared to other teams. The Philadelphia Eagles, number 1 in the league, and the Kansas City Chiefs 15th in the league, and that's basically Chris Jones. So Chris Jones is really, really good. The rest of them aren't all that good. By way of comparison, you look at the Bills a few weeks ago, and the Bills are 11th in pass rush win rate. I can't see on my computer there, but the Bengals are substantially lower. So it's just, you don't want a game to have to be decided like that, especially when you're playing in an indoor stadium. That's a legitimate excuse, in my opinion. I think, look, the game came down to the very end. It didn't end up being a turf issue. That was the difference at the very end. But this, as Juan True Texan asks, was the grass wet? I don't think so. I mean, it's just loose sod. You could see the seams in it. Like, they roll that out, they bring it in, and it's like the fresh lawn in your house. So that sod isn't really just established the way it is when it's grown year-round in a place. Even in the Arizona system, like, they keep the same grass. I don't know why the NFL does it that way. I'd rather see them just paint the grass itself. It's like this every time there's a natural surface, because it's not the surface that's intended to be there. Let's see. Cataldi. This is Angelo Cataldi. And he gets to the root of the issue. I think he goes a little bit over the top in his criticism of defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, who was possibly almost a Texans coach until D'Amico Ryans blew everybody away in an interview. But this was Angelo Cataldi this morning, besides himself with rage.
And there's a lot of blame to throw around. Let me make this clear to you right now. There's going to be blame. We're going to blame the people that maintain the field there. We're going to rip the refs for a bogus call late in the game. Bogus call late in the game. We're going to rip the fumble that Jalen Hurts had in an otherwise brilliant game. We're going to rip especially the strategy at a latter stages of the game. But number one we're going to rip is the defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Nick Sirianni, a couple of weeks ago, called this radio program and started reeling off the brilliance of Jonathan Gannon's defense this year. I will predict he's not booked to be on today. I will predict he will not be doing that again in the foreseeable future. Rhea, you saw that, right?
Yeah.
Were you pulling your hair out in the fourth quarter as you watched the Chiefs own the Eagles coaching staff? The coaching in the second half of that game was a determining factor, and it began with Jonathan Gannon.
There was no question about it. He was owned by Andy Reid.
Owned by Andy Reid. I got to tell you, I think that Andy Reid did have that defense on a string. I mean, they spent the first half kind of probing and figuring out what they needed to do, and they were just absolutely brilliant in the second half. And I don't mean to, sell the Eagles short. The Eagles offensively were still obviously very menacing in the second half too. I think this was a game in which whoever had the ball last maybe was going to be the winner, and unfortunately it just came down to that penalty. But the thing that made it even worse than these two plays I'm about to show you was something that Chad Henne said afterwards that explains it. It does put a lot of the onus on Jonathan Gannon. Honestly, if Jonathan Gannon had been hired by the Texans, I think it would be one of those moments kind of like when Shanahan went to the 49ers, and there's a lot of questions about just how Kyle Shanahan handled the end of that game. You try to ignore it and put it to the side. First, we'll watch the Kadarius Toney touchdown. So Kadarius Toney, just in case somebody for Goddard didn't see it, at the bottom of the screen right there.
Tony's got it. Tony walks in.
The second half of that game was a
You get to listen to
determining
Cataldi for
factor,
a second
and
there
it began with Jonathan Gannon.
There was no question about it. He was
There we go.
owned by Andy Reid.
So there's Tony at the bottom.
Quick throw. Tony's got it. Tony walks in. Touchdown, Kansas City.
So you see, he started in that jet sweep motion across the field.
This second half has been an offensive clinic for the Kansas City Chiefs. They start Tony, he comes in a short motion. They're trying to pass it off. They're expecting him to run some sort of shallow, some sort of over route. Two guys end up going with Travis Kelce, and he's wide open for a walk-in touchdown to an ineligible.
Okay, and so they're so paranoid about those guys, and they're gonna run this again. This was even, in some ways, it might have been even more confusing for the Eagles because the Chiefs weren't actually in the formation that they wanted to be. Reed was running down. He was about to call a timeout, and Matt Nagy, who's back on staff, said, no, it's still good. It's still good. So they were about to call a timeout right here, but it ended up being run anyway. So Sky Moore is at the top. You see he's coming in motion towards the ball, and he's going to do that same jab step and back out to the flat.
Blitz coming. Mahomes, man wide open. Touchdown, Chiefs and Sky Moore.
3 straight touchdown drives. It's the same exact play they ran earlier with Kadarius Toney, and they don't pass it off again. We saw Toney do it on the previous touchdown. 2 guys went with Kelce. All they did was swap out Sky Moore.
So, yeah, all they did was swap out Sky Moore. I mean, that's the part that looks bad for Jonathan Gannon. It does get even worse because Chad Henne, the backup quarterback, said that, you know, they're just trying to protect themselves from the jet sweep. The Eagles are. That's true. And they're trying to – they're trading. They were switching off. And it was something that they had seen that the Chiefs had seen the Eagles do earlier in the year. And they knew that was probably how they'd handle it. When they get down to the red zone, they play a lot of man. The problem is that the Eagles did it. The Chiefs did it twice in the first half just to kind of probe and see how the Eagles were going to respond. Eagles didn't do anything, so it cleared the way for them to do that in the second half. And that's a bad look if you're Gannon and you're up there and you're seeing that, because it catches your eye. You know, it's impossible not to miss that short motion action right there. And they didn't make any adjustments to it, or the guys on the field didn't respond to it. I think that's on Jonathan Gannon, but you also do have to credit Pat Mahomes for doing Pat Mahomes types of things. I think the big thing with today is a lot of people are, I guess it's almost like you're crowning Pat Mahomes as, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy that's going to lead us out of the Brady, Manning, Rodgers era and become the new guy. And some of the stats are kind of alarming. If you look at the comparison, I'm going to get a little bit nerdy here. NFL quarterbacks ranked by largest offense or defense differentials. So basically, good offense, horrible defense. Pat Mahomes, going into the season, for the previous 10 years, he had the 6th worst difference between his offense and his defense. Look at that. RG3 was below him, but only because the Washington defense was so bad. But none of those 5 guys above him, which gives you a little bit more respect, right, for Drew Brees and those awful defenses that Sean Payton always provided for him. Justin Herbert, Tony Romo, Matt Ryan, Aaron Rodgers, 0 Super Bowls in that time. This was after Aaron Rodgers' defense, or after Aaron Rodgers' Super Bowl. So Pat Mahomes now is 1-2 with that kind of minimal support. You look at some of the other things, like, okay, Mahomes versus Brady in their first 3 Super Bowl seasons. Just to try to simplify this down, this is EPA, expected points added. This is the defense that these guys have had in their first 3 Super Bowls. Brady had an average of the 2nd best defense by EPA in those 3 Super Bowl seasons, whereas Mahomes has had the 27th best defense. And Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, does a good job of prepping for these big games and also knowing who his quarterback is on the other side. I feel like sometimes the defensive stats get skewed a little bit because it's frankly, it's kind of hard to play good, solid shutdown defense when you've got an offense like Mahomes on the other side of you, because teams are always kind of going for that screw it all attitude anyway. Like, they're going to take big shots. They're going to do things much more risky than they might otherwise because they feel like that's their only way of keeping up with Mahomes. And that's hard to defend against sometime. You should be able to get more interceptions and everything. But a huge part of it is simply, I forgot you guys got to be able to see my face, my beautiful face. A big part of it is simply just that Mahomes flat out outplayed him. And I think most Eagles fans, I think Sirianni, I think all these guys would say that. To wrap up a few things from the Super Bowl, this was something I heard this morning. Sean Pendergast brought it to my attention. And it's kind of funny, but kind of messed up too. So Terry Bradshaw's at the podium. He's talking to Clark Hunt, the owner of the Chiefs, and then he decides to call Andy Reid over. Tell me if this is out of line. I'm very curious if this is just good-natured ribbing amongst friends or if this is out of line.
And big guy. Let me get the big guy in here. Come on, waddle over here.
Waddle.
Congratulations, Andy.
No.
This had to be, you've done this before. I remember in the 49ers Super Bowl, nothing until the fourth quarter. And this game, something similar. All of a sudden, your offense just started going. What was the difference?
Well, I contribute that to the offensive line, Pat Mahomes, and the rest of the offensive players. They did a great job. Eric Bieniemy was tremendous down the stretch there, putting things together, and it was just by all the coaches, both sides of the ball.
Well, I want to congratulate you, and I know that you're getting up in years now like me, and I just know that it's got to be a time that where all these Super Bowls you got to say to yourself, time to ride off into the sunset. That's not going to happen, is it?
No. I'm going to enjoy this one right here. I'm going to tell you, this is unbelievable.
Remember that.
Philadelphia, you did a great job. It was a great game. But how about those Chiefs? That's what we're talking about.
Have a cheeseburger on us and enjoy the Hawaiian shirts.
I will. That's
congratulations,
why
Andy. Thank you, Pat.
Okay, so obviously the thing I was asking about was the waddle, the waddle over here. The part at the end about the cheeseburger. He always eats a cheeseburger after victories. I don't know if it's like his version of stopping at McDonald's with the team bus afterwards or whatever it is. And then the Hawaiian shirts is just, that's what he's into. Juan True Texan says, wow, yeah, surprise cancel culture isn't all over that body shaming. Lamont says, not out of line if they are friends. This is what I would do, though. I would say, I have no problem calling one of my friends a fat ass. I wouldn't do it in that venue. Like, I wouldn't do it after they had a big, it's just different. Man, I don't know. I'm not acting like it's the worst thing in the world or anything. And I think that Reed probably doesn't give a damn either. I just, I don't know. I don't know if Bradshaw is at the state with his physical form right now where he can be taking shots like telling somebody to waddle on over. Those guys might actually be passing each other in the bodyweight department. I'm not shaming Bradshaw. I'm just pointing out that it's he's not what he once was, okay? He's actually a handsome man when he was younger. This I found right before he went on. And frankly, I'm not going to lie to you, this got me a little bit. This is Pat Mahomes with a family member. But it's not Pat Mahomes with his brother. It's not Pat Mahomes with his wife or girlfriend. I can't remember if they made it official yet or not. This is Pat Mahomes with his dad after the game.
Love you. Hey, I ain't never seen nothing like you. You different. You different. I love you. I love you to death, baby, man. You know I do. Oh, damn you.
Yes! So that'll be on Inside the NFL. I think that Mahomes this year really just came into his own. If you think of these past 2 years and what the narrative was, you know, starting with when Mahomes was, I don't want to say struggling, but he wasn't himself at the beginning of last season. Teams were playing just cover two, taking away the deep ball, making him be conservative and learn how to do all the cliches, take what the defense gives you, all that stuff. And he looked kind of pedestrian for a while, but then he figured it out. But he also still had Tyreek Hill. And then he loses Tyreek Hill. And the question then became, okay, what's it going to look like with Pat Mahomes with no Tyreek Hill, and he ended up just having an incredible year, and it kind of flew under the radar, I guess partly because it's Kansas City, partly because I think he's set the bar so high for himself. But that is still, it was by far, if you look at some of the advanced stats like expected points added, all that stuff, they're the most potent offense out there. And I think much more so than the Bills or the Eagles, I think they were doing it with something that didn't rely on physical dominance. I think if you look at the Bills, Josh Allen, those are the other two teams in terms of EPA that were elite this year. The Bills offensively are, look, Stephon Diggs gets double teamed hopefully, and Josh Allen at some point either makes a great throw or he does it with his legs. Every now and then he throws a really bad interception, like once a week. So, but that's the Bills in a nutshell. The Eagles, my God, you saw it last night. You saw Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Jalen Hurts and his legs. Like I'm not cutting him short at all. His physical skills and talent is immense. It's just that he doesn't have a great arm, especially with his bum shoulder right now. So I think that if you look at what's going to age best, if you had to put money down on what offense of those three is still going to be really dominant 5 years from now, it's going to be the Chiefs, unless Andy Reid ends up, having health issues or just getting sick of it. He really didn't look sick of it last night, and I don't think he was just saying that for Terry Bradshaw's sake. I think he's going to be around for a while. Some of the other notes from the game that I had, Juju Smith-Schuster in that third quarter drive in which they ended up scoring in the fourth quarter, that was your answer to, hey, how come they don't just double team Travis Kelce every play? Because in the first half, Travis Kelce was having himself a game. Second half, he only ends up getting 3 receptions in that half. I say only. But Juju Smith-Schuster, some of these other guys, they're no chumps. They're not just bums. I thought Kadarius Toney and the revelation that he's been in. When you're in the spot where the Chiefs are, you can add guys like that. And whatever negative attributes they have or wherever they've been a disappointment elsewhere, it's amazing how they just shine, and like Tyrann Mathieu did well when he was with the Texans, but he was coming off of that little bit. People weren't quite sure what to make of him. So he took a prove it deal in Houston and he played well. But when they got him to Kansas City, it's not fair to compare Kadarius Toney to Tyrann Mathieu. I think they're different levels athletically. But that's just where the Eagles are right now. I thought the Eagles fans were complaining about not blitzing as much as they have through the years, through this season, shouldn't have been whining about that anymore because they got crushed when they blitzed a few times. When they did blitz, it didn't end up well. I think the Chiefs, when they blitzed, I thought Steve Spagnuolo, the defensive coordinator, deserves a lot of credit for kind of transforming this team over the course of the season and doing a much better job kind of being judicious with their blitzes. Mahomes' run when it looked like he was going to have his foot amputated at the halftime was really impressive. I think that one thing that happens there with these high ankle sprains is there are times where it might be a year later. The high ankle sprain takes forever to heal, and then you'll be completely fine. But then all of a sudden something will hit, and it feels like the original injury all over again. And it probably felt like that with Mahomes at the moment. But he's had ankle issues before, and he probably knows that and recognizes that. There's 2 injuries that are like this. The high ankle sprain and the stinger. Both of them, when you get them, each time it feels like you broke something. It feels like the worst pain you've ever felt. But after you get them a few times, you start to realize, like, oh, okay, I'm going to be in absolute agony for a while, but then it'll fade. And I don't want to look soft or like I was just faking it, so I'm just going to get up and go. And I think that's what Mahomes was doing. When Mahomes was kind of ignoring and refusing medical help, he's been through this before. He probably figured, all right, it'll feel better. And it did. And he got it going. I don't think he needed any extra, needleage or anything than he probably had. I thought the other part of the game plan that was really good for the Chiefs was taking the heat off that pass rush. Between the field conditions, which took a lot of heat off that Eagles pass rush, they started off throwing screens early on, ball came out very quickly. If you look at some of the stats for time to throw, it doesn't really tell the whole story because some of those were from long scrambles. But they got rid of the ball very quickly. And again, that's not easy to do against the good defense because the good defense knows you're going to be trying to get rid of the ball quickly. But just Mahomes, again, is just grown into a full-grown damn man when it comes to being a smart quarterback. The QB sneak and the way the Eagles do it, I think that's going to get changed in the offseason. It was too effective. It was like 90% effective this year when they would get I think the Eagles themselves were 90% effective on 4th and short and 3rd and short. And in most of the time they were getting up and they were doing that wedge QB sneak where the guys in the backfield are pushing on the quarterback. And that's something that it was legalized in 2006. It used to be illegal. Like when a lot of us grew up playing football, you were told and instructed that you weren't allowed to push the ball carrier. You get flagged for that. I don't know if they ever even enforced it really, but just nobody did it. And then they changed the rule in like 2006, but it took until this season for them to figure out that you could do it, and they've been lethally effective with it. I think that'll probably change because what I could see coming is teams this offseason realizing, like, why don't we just do this on 1st down and 2nd down? Because teams, to stop it, teams have to load up everybody, and then all of a sudden it weakens the perimeter a lot. We saw was it the Bills or the Jaguars? One of those two teams in that game lined up like they were going to do the big push, and then they split somebody out wide real quick. So I think that'll get changed. The Chiefs also they ran the hell out of the football. They had themselves a day running the ball. They just did everything right from a coaching standpoint. I feel a little bit weird heaping so much praise on the Chiefs and not necessarily on the Eagles offense, but it was just the way the second half went, where I think the Eagles deserve a lot of credit for everything they did in that game. It was just a masterful job by Andy Reid of using the first half and having a plan for all 4 quarters in a way that, young coaches, it takes a while to figure out. D'Amico will probably figure it out by week 4. Week 4, week 5. He'll be fine. So I'm going to do a Texans one tomorrow. I know this is all strictly NFL, and the Texans will command my attention as well as we'll start doing some Astros ones because it's damn baseball season already. Got pitchers and catchers reporting. And we're going to be doing something a little bit differently with the Astros this year, too, that I'm really excited about. So stay tuned for that on Sports Radio 610. And please like and subscribe and all that good stuff. Really appreciate the response you guys have been given. It's actually been really cool. It keeps growing and growing and growing, and my subscribers keep growing. I'm not tweeting about these much at all. I'm trying to learn how to do YouTube and how to do the search engine optimization and a lot of the video editing and some of the live streaming myself and everything. So for the most part, I tweet about it maybe like once a week, and the rest of it is just you guys showing up. So I very, very much appreciate it, and please tell your friends. Thanks, guys.